Welcome. Welcome to Doug versus the Machine. We're in session 7 and we have one more. I've been doing this twice a week for the month of June. I've had a good time, good attendance, lots of good messages outside the people feeding back to me about what this has all been about. And today we're going to do what the prompt. So hope people are ready for it. Again, this is like a three-angled situation of how I'm trying to run this. One, it's basically office hours, so ask me anything. Ask me anything about what I'm presenting here. If you've been to the ones before, um, if you have questions or want to go deeper on some things, feel free to put it in the chat, and we can figure out how to go deeper on it. And this is kind of it's part of the improv that I'm trying to do. Like whatever, throw the problem at me. We can, I've been doing prompting before it was called prompt engineering, so didn't even know what we were doing back in the day, and then they put a name on it. So happy to walk through a bunch of those things. Um, and I forgot the third angle. So it's improv, it's open office hours. Um, yeah, and hopefully a fun time. So Thursday is going to be the last session, and titled that as Context is King. So if you want to join, if you got here through the RSVP on the meetup, you can go back there and you can RSVP there and get the link and check it out. Also, just today, um, there's a foundation, Agentic Foundation. I've been following them. I've been, seeing what they do, seeing the folks that are involved on a bunch of different platforms. Very impressive. They do a lot of stuff like Claude Code. They use Klein Bot at the command line. They've moved over to Claude. They've got a whole bunch of different things. Some of the top players in that space are doing really interesting things with ROO, ROO. So I think yesterday or something, or last week, I saw that they did their first. They have an entire foundation, so they have a bunch of chapters, so to speak, across the world. And last week or whatever, I saw that they did one in Paris, and I said, I wonder if maybe I should spin one up in New York. And so anyway, I reached out. So there's a few people that I follow, and I reached out to one of them, and said, "Hey, what's going on in New York City? Anybody, anything I can connect with?" They go, "Hey, we just had a meeting yesterday, and they're gonna do one in July." I was like, "Awesome! Can you connect me and just let me know when I get the link?" And they connected me. I'm kind of part of now helping these folks out. I volunteered, and so July 10th, in person from 5:30 to 7:30 here in New York, they're going to do their first Agentics meetup. So back on the RSVP page, if you're in New York, click on that link. I will be there. I'm looking forward to it, and they're going to have a bunch of lightning rounds. So depending on if whatever goes on that night, I might do some PowerShell or Copilot agent flows that I'll show and demo. Yeah, it's gonna be fantastic. They're really pushing these folks are pushing the envelope with lots of different tools, and it's worth, if you can't make it, definitely check them out. The Agentics Foundation, see what they're doing. They often do things online like I do, and good to check out what's going on. So I am recording this. So I'll drop the link into the chat. If you want to see this replay, head over there. You can check out the last meetups I did. They're all up there on my YouTube channel. If you like what you see, please hit the thumbs up, or definitely subscribe, hit the notification so you know when I'm dropping more of these. More are definitely coming, not just on just the improv stuff, but lots of stuff is happening in the space. Um, yeah, and I do videos. I'll be dropping a video today or tomorrow on some of the things we're going to see here in a minute. All right, so everybody's locked and loaded. It's Tuesday. I don't know if it's warm near you, but it's yep, just hit 100 degrees here in Manhattan, in New York City. So it's a interesting day. All right. So we're going to talk about prompting, and one of the first things I want to do is, let's see if we can bring this up. So I put together, so Microsoft dropped something new for the agents, something called chat modes. So I created a GitHub repo called Awesome Copilot Chat Modes. If you want, you can head over there if you haven't been there yet. And I've just got a bunch of write-ups. You can click on the chat mode example for the official documentation. I'll show you how some of it works. I'm only doing simple ones. There's more complex ones coming. Microsoft is got all the hamsters focused on building tons of amazing things in Visual Studio Code. And this is one of them. And it's, again, they're just rolling things out. Uh, it's pretty impressive. And to be honest, if you look at Windsurf and Cursor, which are forks of Visual Studio Code, they've had some of these things already, and they're pushing the boundaries on it. And then as Microsoft pushes the boundaries, they copy, and Microsoft copies what they see is working well with them. So it's a really great time to be developers or people using these kinds of tools. So you can check out the official documentation. So I've got a bunch of different chat modes, things like clean code, if you know about clean code. So I built a little chat mode that talks about how to maintain, what the overall goals and behavior are of something like that. And I'll show you how this works inside of Visual Studio. And today I also have one on PowerShell. I am going to push up one on Python. I'm going to push up one on C Sharp. And today we're also going to talk about Prompt Designer. I called it Prompt Designer. It's really about meta prompting, right? So asking AI, having a conversation with AI about, hey, I want to prompt about this, but can you help me construct a better prompt? So we're going to take a look at that right out of the box. So if you go in and so if you're in Visual Studio Code and you create a .github folder in whatever workspace that you're in, you can create a folder called chat modes. And what that does is gives you an area where you can actually create these files. You can call them whatever you want, but you have to suffix them with .chatmode.md, right? So if you look up on the repo and we go to Prompt Designer, okay, I have the chat mode, what you can copy paste down into Visual Studio Code into that file. And I also have a README with each one. And that shows you some prompt examples that you could use once you have it all set up. It's not hard to do. It's really simple. I have several, and some more people are doing PRs, so keep an eye on that. So I have one, and I pulled down the Prompt Designer one that I set up, and it's basically what they call a system prompt, or you can think of it as a steering prompt. Basically, every time you type something in your chat box down here on the right in the Copilot, it will use this to steer and ground the model. So here what I'm saying is, you're an expert in crafting effective prompts for large language models. Your task: rewrite prompts for clarity, specificity, and effectiveness. Apply prompt engineering strategies, things like few shots, role setting constraints. Diagnose why a prompt might not be working. So this is really interesting so this will ground the model into that mindset, let's say. And you can use whatever language you're comfortable with. If you don't like saying few shot, you want to say strategies like give multiple examples, role setting, you can change to persona. You don't have to use this kind of language. You can use whatever you're comfortable with, as long as it's giving you and eliciting the responses that you prefer. I go on to create a section called When Rewriting, break big goals into small steps, make intent explicit, suggest system prompts or format changes. You never execute code, right? Because we're going to be in agent mode. We just want to chat with it initially. And then we have control through NLP, natural language processing, through another prompt to actually say, okay, go ahead and put this in a file. Cool. Now, the interesting thing is, if you took this and you went off to ChatGPT on the web, or you went to Gemini, or you went to Grok, or you went to whatever tools you use, you can copy and paste this and drop it in as your first, or within your prompting session, you can give it to the AI, and then this will set up it to be a meta prompting approach. So I'm just showing you how easier it is in code, how they make it available. But again, this is NLP, and you can take it to any environment that you prefer, which is interesting and cool. Again, and you can go as deep or as shallow as you want. As you get more, as you get comfortable with this, you can expand this to, a page, 2 pages, 3 pages. You don't want to overdo it because you don't want to confuse the model. But this is, you can expand this or condense it as much as you'd like. So let's see how this works. So I have the prompt designer mode, right? And I have a PowerShell chat mode, which we're not going to go through, right? Similar layout. And what I'm going to do is down here in the bottom right where it says agent, I'm going to now click down and you can see I have 2 custom agents or whatever you want to call them. One is PowerShell, one is prompt designer, right? That's based on the names of the files, right? So you can create your own. Let's say you want to create one for standards of how you want how code is developed or how documentation is developed. You can write up a bunch of stuff inside of a mode, call it documentation standards, call it team standards, whatever you want to do. And it will then show up here as a custom mode that you can choose. You do want to do a reload of your system, either get in or get out of chat to make it happen. So that it pops up here. Click on prompt designer, and you can see I get the emoji, and we're basically good to go. I'm choosing my model, right? I'm going to go at 4.1. You can choose any one of the other models that are, out of the box, depending on the plan that you've chosen. And let's say I wanted to make a prompt that says, create a to-do list using Python, implement CRUD. So basically being in the prompt designer, I know that I wanted to come up with a better prompt for me, and then off it goes, right? So here we have, right, tells, okay, you're a Python developer. So it figured out, or it says, all right, here's a persona. My prompt said, create a Python and implement CRUD. I didn't specify anything more on that. And it spells out that it's create, read, update, delete functionality, store to-do lists in a dictionary, right? And then I could say, right, dictionary is great, but that's in memory. And then I can further prompt it and say, I want to save the list. And you can say, use the word like, I want to persist it. I want to do this, that, the other thing. Use the language that you're comfortable with as long as it's giving you the results that you want. This is not a keyword-driven process. It's natural language. It's not about calling a function with a bunch of parameters. You have to expand your mind a little bit and then say, well, how would I talk? If I was talking to somebody, somebody just joined the team and I wanted to ask them to do it, how would I say it? You can do it exactly that way with AI. So here you can see it said, okay, I said, I want to save it. So it says, all right, we're going to do it in JSON. And then maybe I want to come back and say, use CSV. Right? So now I'm having a conversation about a prompt that I want to do. Okay. And now it updates. It says, okay, we'll do it in CSV, file persistence. So it gets a little, if you start using words like persistence and whatnot, those are high value words that you can use to get what you're meaning across, which is good to know. And you can get better results. But then again, it's AI, and it will figure out and infer a lot of good stuff from what you're doing. So let's say I'm here and I'm like, this is great. And I'm going to say save to plan.md. Let's see if we can get that to happen. Because I did say, I don't think it told me the truth. Awesome. So it said it saved it. So what I'm going to do is, it didn't save it, which is fine. If you want a different markdown format, no. Let's say, what did I say? Save to planmd file. Let's say I'll put the word file on there. See if that helps. So I don't get thrown by this kind of stuff. Like if it doesn't give me exactly what I want, I don't typically stand up and go, oh, this is all no good. I try to work with what the tool has. So it looks like it just saved the example format. So I'm going to say undo, right? I'm going to assume The problem exists between the chair and the keyboard, and that's me, right? It's a little pebcax problem. So I'm just being very minimal in my prompting. So I'm gonna say save the entire prompt and examples, and I'm gonna leave the misspelling and that misspelling to plan. Let's see if that helps, does it better. And if it doesn't do that, I'm gonna change the model and see if that helps. Okay, so there we go. So I'm not going to treat this as a Google search, right? I'm going to, if I would have done this initially, I would have gotten what I wanted. And again, I need to get into the mindset that I'm talking to somebody and saying, if I said to somebody, save that thing to the plan.md, what would they do? I'd get 5 more emails. What do you mean? Is it this? Do you want that? So it's the same thing with interacting with AI, in my opinion. So let's keep that, right? So I've got this. I've said do it in Python. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to switch over to agent mode, going to leave it in 4.1, and I'm going to say, so now we had a conversation. I had it with my prompt, my chat mode. So I improved my prompt. Then I saved my prompt to a file. Now what I'm going to do is just go into pure agent mode and say, implement what is in plan.md. Now, one of the steps I sometimes take is once I get a plan like this, right, I will then go into agent mode and I will say, read the plan and figure out, can you polish it? Can you improve it? Are there things that are missing? So 4.1 came back, said, here's a complete implementation in Python. I'm going to say keep, and then I'm not going to run this. And this is what it came up with, a whole bunch of different functions I'm going to fold that using the IDE. So it came up with all these different functions. And if I wanted to, I could then go to work on that and see if it actually works. What's really cool is if I did run this, or even if it as it is, I can do something like port the to-do.py to PowerShell. Let's see now I'm not going to assume that it's going to get it right. I think it will. It's a relatively straightforward CRUD process, right? And so 4.1 wants to come back up and say, all right, I'm going to do it, but I'm not going to save it to a file. Save to PS1. Let's see if we get it to do what we want. And if that doesn't typically work, I'll switch over to something like Claude 3.5. I'm not sure why 4.1 does this. I think they're working on it. But anyway, so it's a little bit of extra prompting. But again, I'm not, I'm comfortable with that. Sometimes it does these things. And the good news is, I've said before, is that this is the worst it's going to be. And now here we have our to-do list, and it's been ported to, now notice it didn't use good naming, right? That's not a proper verb noun, I think, right? And I will once again see if we can fold this and get, so basically it mirrored what was in to do py, made a PS1 file. Now, what's really cool about this, I don't know, maybe folks just prefer to be in one language. I enjoy doing this, and then I can say things like port this to Go, port it to Rust. I can look at those kind of things. And then depending on what I'm building, I will do things like, if I'm going to build a front end and a back end, maybe I'll ask for a React web page, and I'll ask for a different kind of back end, like a Python back end that I'm going to talk to, or whatever combinations I want. So it's good also to get, the AI and these models are able to do really well extremely well on generating code in any different language. Which is pretty impressive. And then you have lots of more opportunity your palette just becomes bigger, right? Your painting palette goes from 3 colors to an entire spectrum, right? And if you look at some of this stuff, it's kind of funny. Look at it. It decided to output the to-do list in a markdown file, and off it goes. Now, I've done things like, hey, I'm going to produce this in markdown. Write me a markdown renderer in a language. Don't use packages. And I let it build out build that out for me. It doesn't take a long time. We need to kind of step away from like, oh, I call something and it runs really quick because it's, going to do some tight code. But giving this and exploring this with this it lets you start thinking, hey, should I only use this for greenfield development or should I use it for production code? I use it for production code. I constrain it more to do A, B, C, and D. But anyway, um, so there we went. We used the prompt. Now you don't have to use the prompt designer, right? You could copy and paste, you can grab that if you don't want to set this up, or you want to use a different environment. You can find this and then copy and put this into, ChatGPT, and then you can have a conversation. And there you go. So ChatGPT, paste away. I'll act as a prompt designer. So if you want to do meta prompting, which I highly suggest, because AI is really good at prompting AI. So you can put it in any particular environment that you're comfortable with. You don't have to just prompt things to do, this is not about, it's not being, the prompt is not saying, hey, you have to do this for software development. This could be for legal. This could be for compliance, auditing, QA, UAT. It could be for any vertical that you're looking to work with. So highly suggested. And if you're working in things like Cursor or Windsurf or Visual Studio Code, those two other environments beside Visual Studio Code have some similar pieces. So you can copy paste this into the files, and then you'll have an interaction available to pick whatever custom chat mode you want to deal with. And again, up on the repo, you can, if you care to, you can, check out, you can check out the other pieces. Like I have an explainer chat mode, a test writer that helps you write tests and maintain tests. What's good about it is this is in a way that it's language agnostic. If it knows, it'll know that you're in PowerShell because it gets the context from the editor or whatever environment you're working in, and it will use Pester. Or if you're doing JavaScript, it'll figure out whether you want to use Mocha or Jest, so to speak, right? So that's what's really interesting and cool about all this stuff. And as I say many times, we're in chapter 5 out of a 100-chapter book. So it's 12:57. I'm going to go a few more minutes if folks don't mind. Try a couple of more things. And if not, if you have to bounce, it's been a pleasure. Thanks for joining and supporting. Hope to see you Thursday. If you're in New York, hope to see you at the Agentic meetup. I think it's going to be really cool. I'm going to learn a lot. So if you're there, come by and say hello. All right. So I'm going to stay in this mode and I'm going to do a real minimal prompt. And I'm going to say, create a calculator UI in Windows app. And I'm going to just put PowerShell script here. Right. And let's see what happens. Now, I've done this a bunch of different times, a bunch of different ways. I like to play around with this because it's kind of a litmus test from where I sit. Sometimes like I just said, give me a Windows app, so I can see right from here it's a WinForm app. You can come back and say I want it in XAML, or you can ask it to do it in a different way. But it's a litmus test because I can easily run it, try it out, see what breaks, what doesn't break, and then I can experiment. And for me, it doesn't take that long to go through this stuff, which is really cool because we're getting set up as in a time and a place where building things is becoming so quick. It's crazy, right? And you can build it, throw it away. We don't have to be wedded to our code anymore or our approaches. We can say, hey, you know what? Build me 3 versions of this thing. Choose 3 different languages. How would you do it in Go? How would you do it in Rust? Because at the end of the day, we're really this may be a controversial point. We might be moving away from software programming languages. We'll just say, hey, AI, build this for me, make it work. I'm going to display it on a mobile app. I'm going to display it on my local machine. And it might actually build 3 versions, right? One that's optimized for each platform or whatever new platforms are coming. Anyway, so I asked it to build a calculator. Let's see if this even runs. I'm going to hit F5. Okay, we didn't get any errors. Yep, and I spoke too soon. So we got some errors, but we also got an app, and that doesn't look so good. So again, I don't fire this off one time and go, oh, I'm going to get panacea. Sometimes it's not going to work. I want to switch over to Claude Sonnet, and I'm going to say, I'm going to click the retry button. Yes, I want to undo the edits. So now, because we have the context of create a calculator in PowerShell script, I just have a new model working with that context with the same prompt, right? So it's all back to the principles, context, model, and prompt. Now, 3.5 might be a little slower. It'll take longer because it thinks differently, right? It doesn't just shoot from the hip. 4.1 is really well trained on all languages, including PowerShell, but less so than so Claude 3.5 and 3.7 and Opus, even they think through it, they try things out that you don't see what's going on. So they come up with sometimes better answers. Let's see what we got. So it tells me what it did, created this, right? Even said wind forms is what it's using. I'm going to keep that. I'm going to clear this screen out, and let's see if we get a better result. All right, so there we go. So I just built a calculator application. Let's see if the buttons work. 5 times 6 equals. So the equals is not working. And then often, right, so now if I click 2 multiple times, it doesn't work. So I can say something like if you click number 2 more than once, it does not register. And I'll leave the spelling mistake, and the equals does not work. So this is almost like setting up an issue inside of a GitHub repo, or sending an email saying something, hey, I just updated the app, and then you're just giving them feedback saying, hey, this doesn't work, that doesn't work. And this is kind of stuff that you would do if you built the application all by hand, right? You would try things out, and then you would either tell somebody, or you would take notes, and then you would go back and try to fix it. And now I'm just going to tell Claude, hey, here's the deal. Let's see if we get anything better. So now it added a script modifier. And this is kind of cool because it does all this good stuff. And at the end, sometimes what I'll do is I will then tell it to save our conversation so I can do a README or whatnot, whatever I've been doing, or keep track of what's going on. So let's run it one more time. So it still looks like it works. And now we can click all that information. The clear button works. 6 times 5. Let's see if the equals, and we're golden. So now, how long did that take? It's 102, 3 minutes to build. And then I can, again, at this point, for my own edification and for fun, I'll say port this to Go, and I'll see what packages it brings in. And then I can learn about Go if I want to, or I can say build this into a web app. The other interesting next step, fun time thing is I will sometimes say, don't do the calculations in memory. I'll say use I want to talk through let's say the Python SDK and talk to AI, and that this entire thing will capture the numbers and the operands that, the 5 times 6, but don't do the calculations there. Let AI remember what's going on, and then do the calculations with AI, and then report the results back. So it'll actually round trip between the UI and through it to AI, and we've been doing that since 2023, maybe even 2022. And back then, the LLMs were not fast enough, but it was really interesting to see how this thing can come together and play. You get some really interesting results. And of course, lots of people at that time were like, wow, that's the most expensive calculator you're going to ever have, because you're going to pay for every set of tokens going up and back. And now, since intelligence is getting too cheap to meter, this is definitely a direction where things are going. So you may have a visual piece or something that you talk to, but all the calculations are happening in some back-end LLM. And yes, you need to consider, understand your risk profile. Do you want all that information going back and forth? What's going to be the cost? But if you spend all the time doing that rather than playing around with how can this play, it's difficult to begin to figure out how do you architect new types of solutions. How do you become a creator in the space to do different types of things? I think. What else? So, any questions or directions, or anybody have something that they'd want to? We'll wrap up in a couple more, depending on if questions or things that folks would like to see. And I wanted to take a look at one more. Let's see what else I had. Yeah, let's just play one more. So here I'm going to do something called an AI-driven debugging and performance idea. So we're going to just copy this out. Yep. So over here, I'm going to hit Control L. I'm going to swap back to the faster model, that 4.1, which may or may not give me the results I want. Notice how many we've gone through so far. Even with the errors, it's pretty quick to do what you want. If you're working with brownfield development, if you're working with production code, it's going to probably take longer, may have more issues depending on how clear your code is and how much code you're working with, right? This is not a silver bullet. It's not going to go, this is not Star Trek and you're talking to Commander Data and going, hey, can you go fix that? It's not going to work. You need to really kind of understand how to target this thing at what you're doing. Now, if your code is really well organized, if you're using test-driven development, you've got unit tests. If you're doing solid principles, and I don't mean solid as in like a building, solid is an acronym. If you're using those, you're using clean code approaches, another set of principles. If you're using design patterns, AI is really well tuned. It's learned a lot from those types of application sources that it's learned from on GitHub and all the software across the planet. And if you design stuff like that with that, and then you have older code that kind of gets into that space, the more organized and structured it is, AI reasons over it unbelievably well. So let's just kick this off and create a dummy log file. I want a simulated log file with 10,000 lines in it. Just put a date and some information, what kind of event it was. I want a function called get log summary, and it's going to do some things I want to summarize, and then introduce. I want for the demo, I said, introduce an intentional subtle inefficiency or common performance pitfall in how the log file is read. So there we go. We got a 78-line script. I'm going to just eyeball it, and we can run it. And this is how it laid it out, right? So that was not a simple prompt. Some may agree, some may not. Maybe it was simple. It's going to look for a log file, simulated log. Hopefully it goes into the right area. We'll just do it right here. And it's going to generate 10,000 pieces. And I'm just going to run it up. And I know it's going to take long because I asked it to introduce a subtle error or an inefficiency. Okay. So this will take quite a bit of time. Now, why is that? Because the inefficiency that it introduced, I'll show you what it is. All right. So for every record, it creates a bunch of information, and then it outputs it, doesn't add content. So, at first it's going to have one record, then it has to read the entire thing and add a second record, then it's going to have 15 records. So, here we already have 2,600, but every time it does an add content, it has to read the entire file and then append it, or find the end of the file somehow and then append it. So I'm going to stop that. I'm going to delete it. And what I'm going to do, which is kind of cool, and I would, if you're in the software space, you could copy, you can back up that file, or if you're in version control, you can do a bunch of different things. And now I'm going to say, I'm going to bring up the simulated. Oh, I don't want that one. Then I delete the wrong one. Yep. So let's get rid of the log. I'm going to drag the process system log, PS1, over, and I'm going to say find. I'm going to say it runs slow and fix it. right? So maybe I'm talking to Commander Data here. Fix it. And let's see if it can come up with the answer. And let's see what we got. Let's see, do a keep. I don't know if it did much better. Nope, didn't. It found the wrong one. So I'm going to just help it, nudge it along, say the create of the sample file is really slow. So I was just goofing around with it, seeing if it could figure out from that minimal prompt, see if I can hone it in. And there we go. Right. So so what we're seeing here is it's going to take out the add content. It's going to add into an array in memory each time it creates a message. And then once that 10,000 lines or 10,000 entries are created, it'll save it to the file one shot. So let's keep that and let's run it. And and there we go. So not only did we just create 10,000 records, right, but it also went through and it reread the file, um, and it figured out how many infos, warns, and errors there were. And so this is, you can take a broader shot at it and say, hey, this is really running slow, and you can, it might be able to figure it out from that kind of a generic perspective. But if you can also walk through a bunch of different things, like I think this was having a problem, or this is the slow part, or let's analyze this aspect. But I just created an entire PS1 file that creates the 10,000 records and reads it and summarizes it with an error in it or with an inefficiency in it. And then I went back to AI and said, hey, listen, there's some things that are slow. Can you find it? And then I needed to nudge it more in the direction of like, okay, when I'm creating the file, it's really slow, and it goes off and it hits it. I've tried this on very large code bases. There's lots of different techniques you can use to figure out what's going on, identify bottlenecks, issues, concerns. I'll probably do some videos I'll post how I did it, and some of the things that are going on in the general community. Um, so anyway, bunch of folks hung in there. Hope this was useful. And we're going to do a Context is King on Thursday. And I have some plans for July and August. Some really deep dives on some interesting pieces, I think. So any questions, concerns, things you want me to try out? Excellent. I'm glad it's helpful, Curtis. Um, I find these things are interesting, so I hope that other people get excited about it. Maybe one time we should, if somebody's comfortable enough, we can take a look at some brownfield development, or I can take a look at my stuff and bring up something I've worked on for a while, and we can see how it works. Thanks, Mike. Glad to see you Thursday. Hope to see the rest of you. Again, if you got questions or things you want me to prompt or try out that you're working with or struggling with or want to get some more insight on, happy to do it. Until Thursday, enjoy your Tuesday. All right, Matrix. Remind me to record. All right, everybody. Enjoy. Oh, there's a question. Henry's got a question. Go ahead. Almost hit the end button. What's your question, Henry? Or you didn't expect to? Did I hit the end button? No. I did turn off the screen sharing, but we can get back to it. I used your prompt designer to refine my prompt. Awesome. How did it go? Issues? No issues? Maybe I should let you, if you want to, how to switch back to GPT actually executing the prompt. Oh, good. Let's see. Good question. How do you switch back? That's a helpful piece. It's pretty straightforward. So hopefully, can you see my screen? I think I shared it. Yeah, cool. So if you're here and you're doing and this works. Let's just cool. So if you're in prompt designer, or if you're, let's say you're in ask mode is great too, because you can do brainstorming, and it's not going to write files or touch anything you're doing. So it's a good kind of like sandbox way to figure things out. So if you're in that mode, or you're in prompt designer mode, or you're in PowerShell mode, or whatever chat mode that you may be in, and you've done your back and forth conversation to get your prompt to where you want, all you have to do is click where the prompt designer is and go back to agent mode. And now you're in the mode where you can actually tell it to write stuff or to execute, right? Like I did the whole thing, and then I said save it as a plan .md. So you got to be in agent mode, and you're good to go. Hope that helps, right? So you can do all your kinds of work in here. Maybe, in the prompt designer, I said don't write anything, but in the PowerShell mode, I'm telling it to write stuff, and then I can then switch back to pure agent mode. At which point the context, right? It's no longer has the persona of PowerShell. If you're in a C# chat mode, and you go back to agent, you're no longer in that mode. But what's interesting is that the conversation is part of the context. And then you can then do more operations, or expand on, or ask it to write programs, or write content, or write another plan, and so on. Additionally, if I hit control, you can hit the plus sign up here, or control N, right? And that'll give you a new chat. So that clears out all of the context that you've been talking about, and you're basically starting from a clean slate to start asking more questions, and you're not so-called polluted with the piece. So am I switching the persona? Not the persona, not really. No, it's not really. So when you switch from Power Prompt Designer back to Ask or Agent, that's specific to AI, to Visual Studio Code or Cursor or Windsurf. And when you switch into custom mode, it all depends on what your custom mode is, right? So if you look at the clean code chat mode I have on repo, it's not about a persona. It's just a general bunch of guidelines. So it all depends on your chat mode. If your chat mode says, hey, you're a persona, and you switch back to agent mode, yeah, you're switching out from and back to a persona mode. But again, that all depends on what's in your chat mode. You can think of chat modes. These chat modes are just basically prompts, right? And it's a way that you can store your prompts that you use over and over again, and you can get very descriptive within your within your chat mode to do things like personas and whatnot. Does that help? Cool. So like here, I'm saying you're an expert in the prompt design, in creating effective prompts. Typically, grounding something in a persona is a good thing, but you don't have to. But again, you're not really switching between personas. You're switching between. I like to think of it as switching between system prompts. Right? They call them chat modes because it's easier. I look at it as, okay, I'm switching system prompts, which are going to ground and steer my AI conversations differently. So yeah, think about it that way, and then come up with whatever else you think about that might make it easier for you, or makes more sense to you. Remember, this is natural language programming, right? Um, so using your vocabulary is really going to help this stuff connect for you. It's not about using mine. And yes, as you saw when I said, hey, I want to save the file, it came up and says, okay, we're going to persist it in JSON. It's going to use deeper technical terms in that space, but it's also going to understand save the file. And yes, you might get better results if you say things like persist, this dictionary, or this, uh, what am I looking for? Like a hash table and whatnot. Persist this data structure in this type of a format. You might get better results, but don't let that dissuade you from trying this stuff out. This takes time to learn. It takes time to internalize. So yeah, choose your vocabulary. That's the beauty of NLP, I think. Cool. Great question, Henry. Thank you. Anything else? We got a few folks still hanging in there. Awesome. I should call on you. So how many people have done prompting today besides Henry? Anybody else done any prompting? You're welcome, Henry. Anybody else done any prompting today, or everybody's waiting to do prompting till later on? And nobody. So I guess nobody None today. Curtis has said none today. Cool. That's fine. Not today. Matrix sprung a leak in the house. Yeah, that's funny. So I apologize for laughing at the leak that you have in your house. They're starting to run commercials on YouTube, and it's about how you can get, I forget what the word is, handyman insurance. Basically, what that means is, what they sell it as is like AI can help you with a lot of things, but it can't help you with a leak in the house. That's where we come in, and it's kind of, I was like, oh, that's a cute little angle, but that's a bummer. Yeah, plugging leaks is not a fun day. Um, yeah, so yeah, I've been prompting all morning. I'll be prompting later again today. We got a bunch of ideas to try out. Um, yeah, and the more you prompt, the better your prompt engineering muscle gets. And the better your prompt engineering muscle gets, then AI won't replace you. Somebody who knows how to use AI will, and you might be that somebody replacing somebody else. And we're really at a weird inflection time with this new thing called AI, no matter how much the deniers and refusers are talking. All right. Well, thanks for the feedback. Thanks for the interaction. And I'll catch you on Thursday. Enjoy your sprung leak. Hope it's easy to fix. You're welcome.